Strava is hardware agnostic. It will integrate with your Fitbit, it'll integrate with your Apple Watch, it'll integrate with Garmin, it'll integrate with some no-name brand that most people might have never heard of. Like, somebody bought a device on Amazon, and it really did. Like, as a company, we had the ethos of trying to integrate with all of that stuff.
3 success mantra for promotion.
Absolutely. So I would say one is make sure the right people know the work that you do.
So in general, what do you see as a trend in the United States for data folks? Like, what are the tools or languages which are really in trend? So we always say like Python is always there. Welcome back to this amazing podcast where we discuss everything about data. Today is a very special occasion where we are talking about self-advocacy. Before that, we'll talk about business intelligence and everything, how we have to hone our skills related to data analytics. And today we have Shailvi Wakhlu, where she has worked with various companies such as Salesforce, Strava, Komodo, and currently she's running her own business in the United States. So welcome, Shailvi, to this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Atikant. Excited to be here.
That's amazing. And excited to talk a lot about your journey and how people can learn from your journey in terms of data analytics, business. So you did your bachelor's from Illinois University, and then you did some software engineering stuff, and then going ahead with so many big brands and finally doing your own business. So tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for the introduction. So in my case, I've been in tech now for just over 17 years. And you're absolutely right. So I came to the US for my studies. I did my bachelor's and in computer engineering. And so my first job out of college was in software as a software engineer. Did that for about 5 years. And then I was within the same company. I moved to the data side, which just sort of happened. But I feel so grateful that it did, because I've been in data ever since. Dabbled in entrepreneurship along the way multiple times. So this is my second run at running my own business. I'm now a fractional head of data for startups, so really small companies, seed or Series A startups. But along the way, I've worked with, as you mentioned, a lot of different companies. I've also had the pleasure of running two departments in two separate companies. So at Strava and Komodo Health, in both cases, I was running a department. And for example, like in the last role, I had a team of 34 data folks in my last role. But over the span of my career, I would say I maintained hands-on work for the most part until 5 years ago, when I moved into more of the department leadership level.
That's amazing. And honestly, I'm really intrigued with one position at Strava, because I'm a bit runner. I really go for running, cycling, and I always track my progress on Strava. So tell us about those kind of data, like how the team works behind Strava, any challenge that you faced in terms of data integration or anything, like any kind of incident that you can tell us.
Yeah,
From
absolutely. So I'm always happy to meet people who have used Strava and enjoyed
Yes.
using that, because I think that's really fun. That's one of the biggest perks of working for a consumer tech company, that you get to meet so many people who've actually enjoyed the platform. And I think I've been very grateful that I was there for just a little over 2 years, and during that time, wherever I spoke, people would usually come to me and one, tell me that they like the platform a lot, but then two, also give me a list of changes that they wanted to make, because I think it's like, even when I worked at Fitbit, right? Like, I think there are these consumer tech platforms that are so core to people's daily lives that people really consider it something that is a part of every day. So that was one of the perks. But I would say the data challenges were pretty cool. So Strava is one of the largest sports data set in the world. It really has data sets from people's everyday activities, all types of activities. Like, they used to be more of a running, cycling app, and then they've expanded to a lot of different sports. So they really kept that thing of like trying to capture every activity that people did. And I think one of the sort of interesting challenges with that is, and I used to get asked this quite a lot of times, that Strava is hardware agnostic. It will integrate with your Fitbit, it'll integrate with your Apple Watch, it'll integrate with Garmin, it'll integrate with some no-name brand that most people might have never heard of. Like, somebody bought a device on Amazon, and it really did. Like, as a company, we had the ethos of trying to integrate with all of that stuff. So I think in my role, one of the interesting things was, how do we sort of keep kind of reconciling the quality issues that emerge with a data set that's so large, that's so variable, that can be used in so many different ways, and how do we also sort of treat our internal metrics treat our internal like ways of classifying things in a way that is intuitive for the users as well, because Strava ultimately was a platform like it was a data product. The product is
Yeah.
your own activities data set with a skin on top of it.
Right. So what kind of databases do we have? Like, how do we save this large data in Strava kind of companies in general?
Yeah. So I think I obviously can't disclose too much of like the specific technologies
Yeah.
and processes that they use, but I think in general, it was very interesting because, like I said, it was hardware agnostic. So regardless of what you integrated with, all of that came to reside in one place. And the interesting thing was, even if you had manual entries, so if you just let's say you didn't have your device was out of battery or something like that. Even if you decided to manually say that, okay, actually I did complete a run, and enter that information yourself, that was still that is still possible to include that on the platform as well. So a lot of different variations, and as the company kind of went on, during my time is when we launched video capabilities, that it was not just your activity from your tracking device, but you could also upload a video. Photos had been around for a while, but videos was something that we launched while I was there.
All right. Also, that's really interesting that currently you're starting like running your own business. So you are connected with so many startups. So you must have seen some kind of pattern, or maybe what kind of common problems that these startups have. That's the reason they come to you. That, hey, Shelby, please help us with this kind of problem. Or so in general, what are the problems related to data as of now?
Yeah, that's a great point. And to be fair, I hope eventually companies start coming to me. Right now, I am going to companies, and I'm sort of,
Right.
so I hope to reach the stage where I'm a brand name big enough that companies just kind of come find me. But I would say that, yeah, it's been amazing. So I think even the last time that I ran my own company, that time I was actually creating products for startups. So sort of their first alpha beta apps. This time it's interesting. It's companies that have at least got a little bit of traction. They've maybe raised a round or so, and in these cases I approach the companies because I see a sweet spot where companies have a little bit of a product, they have some users, they have started thinking about data. These are companies that typically have, maybe they have a data scientist, a data analyst, or a data engineer. Like they have some data folks in the company, but they are typically a little bit more junior. So these are not companies that can afford to have somebody super senior working on this stuff, but they would like somebody with experience to come and kind of vet a little bit of what they're doing. So I sometimes use the phrase of like the adult in the room who can,
Yes.
who can sort of kind of make sure. So the problems that I see with early stage companies is, one, there are a lot of tools available. You can, like, anything you decide to do, like there's probably 50 tools out there that you can go with. So companies often almost have a little bit of this FOMO that, oh, my data engineer brought in this tool, but is this the right tool, is this the best tool? And they want some reassurance that they've picked better. And I almost always say, like, the best tool, like, yes, you can keep doing this exhaustive process of finding the exact right tool that meets your needs, but the best tool is the one that your team already knows, is a little bit comfortable with. They know the
Right.
pros, they know the limitations, and because startups want to move fast, right? Like, you don't have the time to spend 2 months on a tool audit. So what I do help do is, like, say that, okay, these are best practices in how you should kind of think about this. Like, how much time should you invest in something that you are trying to build versus buy? Like, those type of decisions, I help with a lot of those pieces. And then I actually help them think about their data assets, and create like a 2-year roadmap that, like, here's what you can do, and this is the point at which you should hire at least a manager level person. This is the point at which you should start expanding the team and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So, in general, there are like thousands of tools, and for a particular aspect, maybe 50 or 60 odd tools. So,
Yeah.
it's really hard for the employees as well, for people who are pursuing data analyst roles or data scientist roles, to what focus on. So,
Yeah.
in general, what do you see as a trend in United States for data folks? Like, what are the tools or languages which are really in trend? So
Hmm.
we always say like Python is always there,
Yeah.
so it is trending.
Absolutely. Yeah.
SQL is the good old data structure query language, which is
Yeah.
there
Never
from
goes
so
out of
many years,
fashion.
and it is there.
Yeah.
So apart from Python and SQL, what do you think in terms of maybe tools, languages, or any other concept? What do you think is trending that people who are coming in, who are the beginners, can relate to and can study so that they can move ahead faster?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic, because I honestly do believe that sometimes for people who are new to this industry, who are new to this profession, I do feel bad that sometimes it can be really overwhelming, that there are 30 different terms for something which is very similar, and you're always confused, like, am I picking the right thing? Is my time better spent learning something else? And I do feel that I think companies also, I think it's very helpful when they sort of put out job descriptions, like, even if they mention a tool which is probably the tool that they're using, to say this or similar, like, so that
Yeah,
it doesn't sort of restrict people who can
correct.
probably like pick it up, like it's probably very similar to something else that they have used. Maybe it takes them a couple of days to learn sort of
Yeah,
the nuances, but I feel like I really do wish that companies get better at that. And at the same time, I also wish that people who are applying like understand that, if they say, if they say Tableau and Looker, like, yes, those are two very different tools. Yes, they have very specific things, but it's not like you can't figure it out. So
true.
and yeah, if you know that, okay, something is popular. So like you said, Python, SQL is never going to go out of fashion. Like it's something that people will always like. It's an easy thing that I think people can sharpen on. I would say that DBT is hot right now. Like I think everybody knows it or wants to know it, has sort of used it. On the visualization front, like again, Tableau is something that's been around for a long time. I was formerly at Salesforce, and Tableau is a Salesforce company, but
Yes.
I was not. I think that acquisition was made right when I was leaving. So I'm not saying this as an ex Salesforce person. I just have used it in so many previous roles. Same with Looker, but there's also so many new BI tools on the market. Looker and Tableau are also famously kind of high priced. So there's usually cheaper alternatives that are more niche for the specific use case that a company might have, that are also very helpful to learn.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I would just like to point out my favorite BI tool. That's Microsoft Power BI. So that's what I
Oh,
was working on. But
yeah,
yes, I agree with you in a term like Tableau. If I compare it with Power BI, I have worked on Tableau as well.
yeah.
The visualization that happens in Tableau is outstanding. So Power BI cannot match the
Yeah.
visualization
Mhm.
aspect as compared to Tableau. So yeah, Tableau is very expensive. And second, Tableau don't have analytical abilities. For example, Power Query that we have in
Yes.
Power BI.
Mhm.
So those are a couple of things, but yeah, both are really good in their aspects. But so we have talked about visualization tool, and you talked about DBT. Anything else that comes into your mind related to any other concept?
I guess, I mean, the one concept, like, everybody is talking about Gen AI. That is
Yes.
something that everybody kind of needs to. I think people who are in this space, at the
Yeah.
minimum, need to at least understand what is and is not possible, because that is something that is very common. And this, I even with the startups that I work with right now, usually, in their laundry list of things they want to do, they say, oh, and also our investors are kind of pushing us to do something Gen AI, and it's always interesting because I'm like, okay, what is that? Like, does that mean that your internal, like, data, like, or the product you're making using your internal data should have a Gen AI capability, or does it mean that you should plug into a Gen AI tool and kind of leverage that? So, because there is a big distinction, right? Like, most small companies, depending on what their focus is, they don't have enough data maturity to be able to do something super useful. It's that same thing, like, when everybody was saying, like, oh my god, I should be predictive, predictive intelligence is a thing, or machine learning and all that. I'm like, your data is not even clean. You have a really tiny
Exactly.
data set. It's
Yeah.
not clean. There's not going to be much that you can predict with it, and even if you do, it's not going to be accurate. So it's the same
Exactly.
thing, right? Like, what can you even hope for if your data maturity is very low?
So is it like companies are having a FOMO because it's a buzzword and they want to move into this, and maybe it's a good time, maybe it's not. So yeah, time will tell for sure.
Yeah,
And as you said, like I really resonate with this. So I have worked with big companies as well in Australia as well. So when I see their data, it is so messed up. And I figured it out like, hey, you're a very big company, how it is possible? But this is the truth right now with every company. It's not like one or two companies are having unclean data, everyone. So it's really hard to apply machine learning concepts. I
yeah,
mean, if even if you apply, it's not accurate, so it doesn't make sense.
yeah,
So I think analytics is a very big opportunity right now in terms of like how you can clean your data, how you
yeah.
can visualize, create some trends out of it. That is something which is really good, and beginners can learn these skills so that they can progress.
Absolutely.
Also, there is one more thing regarding data storytelling. So you have published a book as well on data storytelling. And what are the things you feel? Of course, when you create your visualization and all the things, storytelling is really important so that you can explain it to the stakeholder and see that, hey, these are the insights. So it is about telling the complete picture.
Yeah.
So explain, because you have wrote down a book, and I'm sure you will have nice words on data storytelling. So please tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just to clarify, so the book for data storytelling is not out yet. That is still
Oh,
in progress. It is just the course. So the course so far, I think around 150 people have gone through that cohort.
oh,
And
amazing.
so yeah, so the book draft is in progress, but I don't have the book for that yet. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of. I think it's almost sort of the, you know, I think people work so hard with data science techniques, and they like, again, like the whole process of data science is so long, right? Like you gather data, you put it together, you transform it, you clean it, you get an insight out of it, maybe you have a chart or something, but the final point of all of that data is to help a company make a decision. And if you cannot convince the right set of people to do the right thing at the right moment based on data, then what is the point of that entire process, right?
Exactly.
So to me, data storytelling feels like that final kind of putting it all together in a format that speaks to the people who can do something, who can take action. And it's so important to land because I have, over the years, I have worked with a lot of people. I've had some very, very nice teams with very smart people. And I think the people who were really frustrated, they're like, the data is saying we should do this, but like the executive is not agreeing. Like they're not. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Like, yes, they're not agreeing, but what is in your power to get them to agree? Like, is it that they understand everything and they still just refuse to do it? Like, that's a different problem, right? That's a
Correct.
political problem. But if the problem is that they don't actually understand what you're trying to explain it to them, then it is our job to get better at that explanation. Explaining technical concepts or technical results to a non-technical audience is, I think, a very critical skill. So that's why I sort of, I've worked on it for a very long time. And it also helped that I'd worked with companies in the past. Like I worked with Prezi, which is a presentation software company. So I actually picked up some storytelling, tips from there, which I then applied to my data role as well. But I'm very grateful for people who invest in that skill, because I do think it's one of the game-changing things that people can do.
Oh, that's amazing. So, in case we have to, get hands on it, in terms of the cohort that you
Yeah.
are having right now, so how
Yes.
can we do that? Because maybe like most of the people are interested. Even I'm interested to know more about it. Like, though I know data storytelling, but it's always good to learn more things. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, just tell us how we can grab data storytelling cohort. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually running a cohort right now. I'm finishing the first week, and the second week starts next week. But I do run these at, every few months I'll have a new cohort. So if you go to my website, which is just my name, shailvi.com, you should be able to find the course listed on my website on the edge, and you can just sign up, and it'll alert you when the next cohort comes
Oh,
up. And I think there's a
easy.
discount code on my website for it as well.
That's amazing. So yeah, that's great. Also, apart from this, I have seen on your LinkedIn, you have always talked about self-advocacy,
Yes.
right? So honestly, tell us more about it. This is something which is not a very easy word to understand for many people.
Yeah.
So what is self-advocacy and what is it for data folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one I have written a book on. So
Oh, that's
this is the
amazing.
book that got launched first, before the data storytelling one comes out. But yeah, so self advocacy is very simply anything that you do or say which is in the best interest of your career. So of course, my book is the self advocacy topic is in the context of work. Like how do you advocate for yourself at work? So it is just that either you do it in a proactive way where you already know that there are things that you can say or do which position you for career success, and then, like, how do you pick up those skills to do them in a more intentional manner? Or it can be reactive. So you observe things happening which are not in your best interest, and you decide to speak up and or act to change that situation. So that's basically what the talks that I give are about. Like, I've been talking about it for 5 years. My book got published last year, and it's something that I think, especially, like, I think it's especially relevant to data, like people who are in data, because like we were discussing earlier, like, you do all of this work, and then the outcome is either not celebrated or it's not appreciated, or it's not even about you. Like, if your work is not translating into the results you want, that is something that you can take control of. It is something that it benefits your career at every single stage. Whether you're an intern or a CEO, you will need that skill. So the sooner people invest in that skill, especially data people who have to convince people quite often, I think it's a skill that's very teachable, and it's a skill that's very useful.
So is it in general data folks are introvert, and because of that they are not able to transfer what they are doing? Maybe they are really good in tech skills and they are not able to explain it to the stakeholders, or they are not able to convince that they are doing really good and they should get promotion or something. Is that what self advocacy is for data folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that so I've been speaking about this topic for years, and most of the time my audience is technical folks. So it is engineers, it is analysts, it is machine learning engineers, and all of them. I would not, like, not all, of course. Nothing is to everyone, but I would say that in general, like, we went to college, we might have learned technical skills, but was there a class that taught us how to negotiate a salary? Was there a
Right.
class that taught us how do you get a promotion? How do you make sure that your boss notices your work? How do you make sure that if somebody says or does something in a negative manner, how do you respond to it in a polite but firm way? Like, that is not something that we are taught. So some of us have come from families or cultures where we kind of pick those skills up through there. But otherwise, society doesn't really teach us how to talk about ourselves without, like, it feeling salesy. So I do think that
Right.
I think that, yes, like, I think the where do you apply self advocacy? I think the most common places it shows up is trying to get a promotion, trying to get opportunities. It's not just about a promotion. It's like, hey, I want to work on this project. Why does this other person who doesn't have the same skills as me get those opportunities and I don't? And usually the answer comes down to, like, they present themselves in a different way, or simply that they ask, like, they are more comfortable asking. So the introversion aspect, I think, is definitely true. I think people who are a little shy of how they appear in group settings, or they don't want someone to think of them negatively if they ask for something or if they highlight something. I think that 100% plays a role in why some people have difficulty with it.
Also, I've seen many people, they say yes to everything. So whenever their boss or manager say that, hey, do this and that, they will say yes out of fear of the self esteem or something. So is it really important to say no as well, or it's like we should say yes to all the things?
Yeah, and I love that you asked that question and phrased it that way, because if you think about it, like, you've also worked in the analytics space for so long. One of the things that we often repeat in analytics is that learn when to say no. Because I have yet to meet a company that said that all their data questions were answered. That is not a
Yeah,
thing. That is not a thing that
exactly.
exists. Like, everybody, if they get excited about data, honestly, they just want more data, so they will keep asking you for stuff. So I think a very important thing that analysts have to do is to learn how to say no, and it's for the best interest of the business. Like, they have to be able to say, hey, you've asked me for these 5 things, I only have capacity to do 3 things, and these are the 3 that are the highest impact. Like, you want your time to be spent on the highest impact problems. If you get burnt out by trying to do all 5 things, like, eventually the company suffers too. You are either going to be sick, or you're going to want to leave, or you're going to be just upset, you won't do your best work. So it is in the best interest of the company that you stand up for not just yourself but for the team, and say that, you know what, we have too many tasks on our plate, and we need to prioritize what are the most important things that we need to do. And when you phrase it that way, it stops becoming that, oh, I am upset about something. It starts becoming, hey, we should work together to figure out what is the best interest for the business. And I think that, like, really shifts that mindset, that you are trying to help. You're not just asking something for yourself, you're trying to help the company get better at
Right.
prioritizing. You're trying to make your boss may not even understand that, like, they may think that those 5 things will take you an hour. And when you explain that, hey, each of these takes me 5 days, then, like, even your boss is going to be like, okay, that does not make sense. I only want to do the highest value stuff.
Yeah, that's really nice, because sometimes boss or manager, they can assume that this might be done in 2 hours or so,
Yeah,
and it's your duty to tell that, hey, this might take 2 days. So
exactly.
otherwise, they will just assume it's 2 hours job and he's doing in 2 days or something, and his work efficiency is low. So it's our duty to explain and go ahead with that. Also, to
Absolutely.
conclude, just one more thing. Of course, it can be on the fly. 3 success mantra for promotion.
Absolutely. So I would say one is make sure the right people know the work that you do, and they understand it. Then I would say second is, like, take the control in your own hands. Like, don't wait for someone to explain the process to you, or like ask those questions. Like, you don't even have to ask it as, like, oh, give me a promotion, but you can say something like, hey, I would like to understand how I will show continued growth in my career. And third is, don't be afraid of a no. Even even knowing an answer that no, you are not ready for a promotion, is still information. Like, when somebody tells you that, you can follow up with, like, okay, and what should I do next so that I can be ready for a promotion? So don't be afraid of hearing a no. Every no gets you closer to that yes, and it gives you more control to figure out your path along the way.
That's amazing point. Out of 3 points, I understood one important point is don't be silent. So
Yes.
if you are in office of let's say 500 employees and you're just silent, working really hard, and you're doing really good, but you're not being observed from your senior folks. So it's really important to speak about what you're doing, always discuss things, and as you said, even if it is a no, it's an information. So that's amazing point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's amazing. So yeah, I think that's it. We discussed a lot about it, like data storytelling, self advocacy, something new for each of us. So that is amazing. And yeah, thanks a lot, Shelby, for coming on this podcast. So anything else from your side? Would you like to conclude on?
No, I think for your listeners, I would just say, like, don't be afraid to go after the career that you want. It's out there.
Yes.
Anything in data is possible. But thank you so much, Atikan, for having me on this show. I've really enjoyed your questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this episode turns out.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Shelby. Have a great time.
Thank you. You too. Bye.